My name is Zenobia Carter, and I'm 78 years old. For most of my life, I believed my son loved me. I believed he would take care of me in my old age, just as I had taken care of him his entire life. I was wrong. My son Sterling didn't just fail to take care of me. He actively tried to get rid of me. He left me on the street, homeless and helpless, hoping I would simply die and disappear from his life. But I didn't die. Instead, I survived. I rebuilt. I became stronger than I'd ever been. And 6 months after Sterling abandoned me, I walked back into his life looking healthier, wealthier, and more powerful than he could have imagined. The look on his face when he saw me, the way all the color drained from his skin until he looked ash-white with shock. I'll never forget it as long as I live. I stood in the lobby of Sterling's office building, wearing a tailored burgundy suit with gold accessories. My hair was freshly done, styled in elegant silver curls. I carried a designer handbag and wore expensive jewelry that sparkled under the fluorescent lights. I looked nothing like the broken, homeless woman Sterling had dumped on the street 6 months ago. The receptionist had called up to Sterling's office. "Mr. Carter, there's a woman here to see you. She says she's your mother." Through the phone, I could hear Sterling's voice, confused. "My mother, that's impossible. My mother is. Tell her I'm not available." "She insists, sir," the receptionist said, looking at me. "She says you'll want to see her." There was a long pause. "Fine, send her up." I rode the elevator to the 15th floor, my heart pounding but my face calm. When the doors opened, Sterling was standing in the hallway waiting, his arms crossed, looking annoyed. Then he saw me, and his entire face went ash-white. "Mom," he whispered, his voice barely audible. "Hello, Sterling," I said calmly, walking toward him. But how are you?" Sterling couldn't form a complete sentence. He looked like he was seeing a ghost. "How am I alive?" I finished for him. "How am I standing here, healthy and well-dressed, when you left me to die on the street 6 months ago?" Sterling's eyes darted around the hallway, checking if anyone else was hearing this. "Mom, I don't know what you're talking about." "Don't lie to me," I interrupted, my voice sharp. "You drove me to the homeless shelter on 5th Street. You told me you couldn't take care of me anymore. You said I was too much of a burden. And then you left me there with nothing but the clothes on my back and $50. I was going to come back," Sterling stammered. "I was going to check on you." "You never came back," I said. "Not once in 6 months. You changed your phone number. You blocked me on social media. You moved to a new apartment without telling me the address. You wanted me to disappear, Sterling. You wanted me to die." Sterling's face was still pale, but now anger was mixing with the shock. "What do you want? Money? Is that why you're here?" "No," I said with a slight smile. "I don't need your money. I have plenty of my own now. I'm here to tell you what's going to happen next." "What are you talking about?" Sterling asked nervously. "I'm talking about consequences," I said. "You thought you could just throw your mother away like garbage and face no repercussions. But you were wrong. I'm going to make sure you understand exactly what you did, and I'm going to make sure everyone you know understands it too." I pulled an envelope from my purse and handed it to him. "What is this?" Sterling asked, taking it with shaking hands. "Open it and see," I said. Sterling opened the envelope. Inside were legal documents. As he read them, his face went from white to green. "You're suing me," he said, his voice rising. "For what?" "Elder abuse," I said calmly. "Abandonment, financial exploitation, all documented, all provable, all illegal." "You can't do this," Sterling shouted. "I'm your son." "Exactly," I said. "You're my son. The person who should have protected me, cared for me, helped me. Instead, you left me on the street hoping I'd die. So yes, Sterling, I absolutely can do this. And I am." I turned to walk back to the elevator, but Sterling grabbed my arm. "Wait, Mom, please, we can talk about this. I made a mistake, okay? I was stressed, I was overwhelmed, I didn't know what else to do." I pulled my arm free. "You had 6 months to feel guilty, Sterling. 6 months to come find me, to apologize, to make it right. But you didn't. You only care now because I'm standing in your office building, alive and well and ready to hold you accountable. Please, Sterling begged, tears now streaming down his face. Don't do this. I'll make it up to you. I'll take care of you now, just don't sue me, please. It's too late, I said. You'll hear from my lawyer. I got in the elevator and descended to the lobby, leaving Sterling standing in the hallway, looking ash-white and terrified. But to understand how we got to this moment, I need to take you back to the beginning. I was born in 1947 in a small town in Georgia. I grew up poor but loved, raised by parents who worked hard and taught me the value of education, honesty, and family. I married my husband Judge in 1967 when I was 20 years old. Judge was a good man, kind, hardworking, and devoted to our family. We had one child, Sterling, born in 1970. I poured everything into raising Sterling. I stayed home with him when he was young, helping with homework, attending every school event, making sure he had everything he needed. Judge worked 2 jobs to support us. We didn't have much money, but we had love. We had stability. We had each other. Sterling was a bright child. He did well in school, got into a good college, graduated with a degree in business. Judge and I were so proud. Judge died in 2005 at the age of 60. A sudden heart attack took him from us. I was devastated. But I still had Sterling. He was married by then, had a good job, seemed to be doing well, and he promised to take care of me. Mom, don't worry, Sterling said at Judge's funeral. I'll always be here for you. You'll never be alone. I believed him. For the first few years after Judge died, Sterling kept his promise. He called regularly, visited when he could, helped with repairs around my house. I continued working part-time as a seamstress, taking in alterations and custom orders. It kept me busy and gave me a small income to supplement my widow's pension. I was independent. I didn't ask Sterling for much, just his time, his presence, his love. But slowly, things started to change. Sterling's marriage fell apart. He got divorced in 2010, and it was ugly. Expensive lawyers, fighting over assets, bitter custody battles over his 2 children. After the divorce, Sterling became different. Harder, more focused on money, less patient with anything that didn't directly benefit him. His visits became less frequent. His phone calls shorter, his interest in my life minimal. How are the grandkids? I'd ask. Fine, Mom. Listen, I'm really busy right now. Can we talk later? Later never came. In 2018, when I was 71, I had a health scare. I fainted at home and was rushed to the hospital. The doctors discovered I had dangerously high blood pressure and early-stage diabetes. I called Sterling from the hospital. Honey, I'm at County General. I had a fainting spell. The doctors want to keep me overnight for observation. Okay, Mom, Sterling said distractedly. I could hear him typing on a computer in the background. That's good they're checking you out. Can you come visit? I asked. I'm a little scared. I'm swamped at work right now, Sterling said. But I'm glad you're okay. Keep me updated. He hung up before I could say anything else. He never visited, never called to check on me. I spent 2 days in the hospital alone. When I was discharged, I took a taxi home. I'd hoped maybe Sterling would offer to pick me up, but he didn't even know when I was leaving the hospital. That's when I started to realize I couldn't count on my son anymore. Over the next few years, my health continued to decline. The diabetes got worse. I developed arthritis in my hands, making it harder to do the detailed sewing work I'd built my business on. My income dropped. My savings dwindled. I started having trouble paying bills. I called Sterling. Honey, I hate to ask, but I'm having some financial difficulties. Could you help me with my electric bill this month, just until I get back on my feet? Mom, I'm dealing with my own financial problems, Sterling said. The divorce cleaned me out. I'm barely making it myself. I understand, I said. I just thought. I can't help you right now, Sterling interrupted. You need to figure something out. Okay, I said quietly. That became the pattern. Every time I needed help, medical appointments, grocery shopping, a bill I couldn't pay. Sterling had an excuse for why he couldn't help. Too busy, too broke, too stressed. Never just, "I'm sorry, Mom, I don't want to help you." At least that would have been honest. In 2024, things came to a head. I'd fallen 3 months behind on my mortgage. The bank sent foreclosure notices. I called Sterling in a panic. "They're going to take the house. The house your father and I bought 40 years ago, where you grew up. Sterling, please, I need help." "How much do you need?" Sterling asked. $4,000, I said, "to catch up on the missed payments." There was a long silence. "I don't have that kind of money, Mom." "Please," I begged. "I'll pay you back somehow, I just need time." "I can't help you," Sterling said firmly. "You should have managed your money better." "Sterling, I'm 77 years old," I said. "I can barely work anymore. I don't have any way to make more money." "That's not my problem," Sterling said coldly. "You're an adult, figure it out." He hung up. 2 months later, the bank foreclosed on my house. I had 30 days to vacate. I called Sterling one more time. "They're taking the house. I have nowhere to go. Can I stay with you? Just temporarily until I figure something out." "No," Sterling said immediately. "I don't have room. And honestly, Mom, I think you need to learn to stand on your own 2 feet instead of always relying on other people." "I'm 77, I said again. "I raised you. I took care of you your entire childhood. And now when I need help, you're just going to abandon me." "I'm not abandoning you," Sterling said. "I'm setting boundaries, there's a difference." "Where am I supposed to go?" I asked desperately. "There are shelters," Sterling said. "Resources for homeless seniors, you'll figure it out." And he hung up. On moving day, I packed the few belongings I could carry into 2 suitcases. Everything else, furniture, dishes, photo albums, 40 years of memories, I had to leave behind or sell for pennies to strangers. I sat on the front porch of the house where I'd raised my son, where I'd loved my husband, where I'd built my life, and I cried. Sterling didn't come to help me move, didn't call to check if I was okay, didn't offer any support at all. I called a taxi and asked the driver to take me to the homeless shelter on 5th Street. As we pulled up to the shabby building, I felt my heart break completely. This was my life now, 77 years old, and I was homeless. I was checking in at the shelter's front desk when I heard a familiar voice behind me. "Mom." I turned around. Sterling was there, looking uncomfortable. "Sterling," I said, hope flooding through me. "You came, did you change your mind? Can I stay with you?" "No," Sterling said. "I came to make sure you got here okay." "Got here okay?" I repeated. "Sterling, this is a homeless shelter. How can anything about this be okay?" "Mom, you'll be fine here," Sterling said, not meeting my eyes. "They have beds, food, resources. You'll get back on your feet." "I'm 77 years old," I said for what felt like the 100th time. "I'm not going to get back on my feet. I need help, Sterling. I need my son." "I can't be what you need," Sterling said. "I'm sorry." He pulled out his wallet and handed me $50. "Here, for whatever you need." I stared at the money. $50. That's what my son thought my life was worth. "Sterling, please," I said, tears streaming down my face. "Don't leave me here. I'm your mother. I love you. I need you." "I have to go," Sterling said, already backing toward the door. "Take care of yourself, Mom." And then he left. He just left. I stood there in that homeless shelter, clutching $50 and 2 suitcases, watching my son walk out the door without looking back. That was the last time I saw Sterling for 6 months. The homeless shelter was worse than I could have imagined. Rows of cots packed together, no privacy, no dignity, the smell of unwashed bodies and desperation. I was the oldest person there by at least 20 years. Most of the other residents were younger people dealing with addiction, mental illness, or bad luck. They weren't unkind to me. In fact, many of them tried to help, showing me where to get meals, how to navigate the shelter's rules, which streets were safest to walk during the day. But I was terrified, confused, heartbroken. How had this happened? How had I gone from being a wife, a mother, a homeowner to being homeless in less than 6 months? The first week, I barely ate. I couldn't sleep. I just lay on my cot, staring at the ceiling, wondering if it would have been better if I died instead of ending up here. But then something happened that changed everything. On my 8th day at the shelter, a woman approached me during breakfast. She was about 60 years old, professionally dressed, with kind eyes. "Mrs. Carter," she asked, "my name is Dovie Williams. I'm a social worker who specializes in helping elderly residents get back on their feet. May I sit with you?" "I suppose," I said quietly. Dovie sat down across from me. "I've been reviewing your intake forms. You're 77, you lost your home to foreclosure, and you have one adult son who declined to help you. Is that correct?" "Yes," I said, my voice breaking. "And did your son have the financial means to help you?" Dovie asked. "Or was he genuinely unable to assist?" "He has money," I said bitterly. "He has a good job, a nice apartment. He chose not to help me." "I see," Dovie said, making notes. "Mrs. Carter, what I'm about to tell you might sound strange, but I want you to listen. You don't have to stay here." "I have nowhere else to go," I said. "Not yet," Dovie agreed. "But there are programs, resources, options you might not know about. And more importantly, there are legal protections for elderly people whose family members abandon them." "Legal protections?" I asked. "Yes," Dovie said. "What your son did, leaving you homeless when he had the means to help, could be considered elder abandonment. It's a form of abuse, and you have rights." I stared at her. I could sue him. "Potentially," Dovie said. "But more importantly, there are programs that can help you rebuild your life. Would you be interested in hearing about them?" For the first time in weeks, I felt a tiny spark of hope. "Yes, please, tell me everything." This story is just beginning. Subscribe now. Hit that like button and turn on NOTFICTONS. Drop a comment. What would you do if your child abandoned you? Does Sterling deserve forgiveness? Where are you watching from? United States, Canada, United Kingdom, Kenya, Jamaica, Australia? Let me know. Dovie Williams became my lifeline. Over the next week, she introduced me to resources I never knew existed. Programs specifically designed to help elderly people who'd been abandoned or exploited by their families. "The first thing we need to do is get you out of this shelter," Dovie said during our second meeting. "It's not safe or appropriate for someone your age. I've arranged for you to move into a transitional housing program for seniors." "What's that?" I asked. "It's a supervised apartment building for elderly residents who are experiencing homelessness," Dovie explained. "You'll have your own small studio apartment, access to meals, medical care, and social services. And most importantly, you'll have time to rebuild without the chaos of the shelter." "How much does it cost?" I asked nervously. "Nothing," Dovie said. "It's funded by grants and donations. All you need to do is agree to work with me on a plan for your future." I felt tears streaming down my face. Thank you so much." "Don't thank me yet," Dovie said with a slight smile. "We have a lot of work ahead of us." 3 days later, I moved into Sunrise Manor, the transitional housing facility Dovie had mentioned. My studio apartment was small, just a bedroom, bathroom, and kitchenette. But it was clean, safe, and most importantly, it was mine. I had a real bed instead of a cot, a door that locked, a window with curtains, privacy. I sat on the edge of my bed, that first night, and cried tears of relief. The next morning, Dovie came to visit with a folder full of paperwork. "All right, Zenobia," she said, sitting at my small table. "Let's talk about your situation. You're receiving a widow's pension from your late husband's Social Security, correct?" "Yes," I said. "It's about $900 a month." "And you have no other income?" Dovie asked. "No," I admitted. "I used to do sewing and alterations, but my arthritis got too bad." "What about savings?" Dovie asked gently. "I had about $12,000 saved," I said, "but I spent it all trying to keep the house before it was foreclosed. Now I have nothing." Dovie made notes. And your son, Sterling, did he ever provide you with financial support, help with bills or living expenses? No, I said. He always said he couldn't afford to help me. But you believe he could afford it, Dovey pressed. I know he could, I said. I've seen pictures on social media of his apartment, his car, his vacations. He has money, Dovey. He just chose not to share any of it with me. That's important, Dovey said. Because what Sterling did, leaving you homeless when he had the financial means to help, is legally considered elder abandonment in this state. It's a form of elder abuse. Can I really sue him? I asked. You can, Dovey confirmed. But Zenobia, I want you to think carefully about whether that's what you want. Suing your son will be emotionally difficult. It will likely destroy whatever relationship you have left with him. And there's no guarantee you'll win. We don't have a relationship, I said bitterly. He threw me away like garbage. What's left to destroy? Fair point, Dovey acknowledged. But before we talk about legal action, let's focus on getting you stable. Once you're in a better place physically, financially, and emotionally, then you can decide how you want to handle Sterling. One of the first things Dovey arranged was comprehensive medical care. Sunrise Manor had a partnership with a nearby clinic that provided free services to residents. Dr. Royal Thompson was a kind man in his 50s who specialized in geriatric medicine. He spent 2 hours with me during my first appointment, reviewing my medical history and running tests. Mrs. Carter, your diabetes is poorly controlled, Dr. Thompson said, looking at my test results. Your blood sugar levels are dangerously high, and your blood pressure is through the roof. When was the last time you saw a doctor? About a year ago, I admitted. I couldn't afford the copays after I lost my insurance. Well, you have insurance now, Dr. Thompson said. Dovey got you enrolled in the state medical assistance program. So from now on, you're going to see me regularly, and we're going to get these conditions under control. Over the next 3 months, Dr. Thompson put me on new medications, adjusted my diet, and monitored my progress closely. Slowly but surely, my health began to improve. Your blood sugar is coming down, Dr. Thompson said at my 12-week checkup. And your blood pressure is much better. Keep this up, and you'll be in good shape. I feel better than I have in years, I said honestly. That's what happens when you actually receive proper medical care, Dr. Thompson said. You should have been getting this level of care all along. My son said I was being dramatic about my health problems, I said quietly. He said I just wanted attention. Dr. Thompson's face hardened. Your son was wrong. You had serious, life-threatening conditions that were being neglected. If you'd gone much longer without treatment, you could have died. The words hit me like a punch. Sterling hadn't just abandoned me. He'd left me to die, just like the story title said. And he hadn't cared. Dovey also connected me with a support group for elderly people who'd experienced family abandonment or exploitation. The group met weekly in the community room at Sunrise Manor. I was nervous before my first meeting. I didn't know if I wanted to share my story with strangers. But when I walked in and saw 15 other elderly people sitting in a circle, all with stories similar to mine, I felt less alone. The group leader, Winnie Chen, was a social worker in her 40s. Welcome, everyone. Today we have a new member. Zenobia, would you like to introduce yourself? I'm Zenobia Carter, I said. I'm 77 years old. 6 months ago, my son left me at a homeless shelter and never came back. Welcome, Zenobia, Winnie said warmly. You're in a safe space here. Everyone in this room has experienced family abandonment or abuse. We understand what you're going through. One by one, others shared their stories. Pearlie, 82, whose daughter had stolen her life savings and left her penniless. Judge, 75, whose son had forged his signature on documents to take ownership of his house. Artie, 79, whose grandchildren had convinced her to sign over her pension checks and then cut off all contact. Story after story of betrayal, exploitation, and abandonment, all committed by the very family members who were supposed to love and protect them. I thought I was the only one, I said, tears streaming down my face. I thought there was something wrong with me, something I'd done to make my son treat me this way. "There's nothing wrong with you," Winnie said firmly. "Elder abuse is shockingly common. 1 in 10 elderly Americans experiences some form of abuse, neglect, or exploitation, and most of it comes from family members." "Why?" I asked. "Why would children do this to their own parents?" "Lots of reasons," Winnie explained. "Greed, resentment, stress, mental illness, substance abuse. Sometimes they convince themselves they're doing the right thing. Sometimes they just don't care. But none of those reasons make it okay." "What do we do about it?" Artie asked. "How do we fight back?" "That's what this group is for," Winnie said. "Supporting each other, learning about our legal rights, finding the strength to hold our abusers accountable. You're not powerless. You're survivors. And together we're going to help each other rebuild." 3 months into my stay at Sunrise Manor, Dovey introduced me to a financial counselor named Royal Martinez. "Zenobia, I know money is tight right now," Dovey said, "but Royal is going to help you understand your financial situation and create a plan for becoming self-sufficient." Royal was a young man in his 30s, patient and kind. He sat with me and went through every aspect of my finances. "Okay, so you have $900 a month in widow's pension," Royal said, making notes. "And you're currently paying nothing for rent because you're in transitional housing. What are your other expenses?" "I don't really have any," I said. "The housing provides meals. My medical care is covered. I don't have a car or phone or anything like that." "So theoretically, you should be able to save most of that $900 each month," Royal said. "But I won't be in transitional housing forever," I pointed out. "Eventually, I'll need to find my own place, and I can't afford rent on $900 a month." "You're right," Royal agreed. "Which is why we need to increase your income. Have you thought about going back to work?" "I'm 77 years old," I said. "Who's going to hire me?" "Lots of places," Royal said. "There are programs specifically designed to help elderly people find employment. Part-time work, flexible hours, positions that accommodate physical limitations. You're not too old to work, Zenobia. You just need to find the right opportunity." Over the next few weeks, Royal helped me update my resume. I hadn't had one in decades. Practice interview skills and apply for positions. I got rejections at first, lots of them. But finally, a local library offered me a part-time job shelving books and helping at the circulation desk. It paid $12 an hour, 15 hours a week. That was an additional $720 a month. Between the pension and the job, I'd have over $1,600 a month. It wasn't a fortune, but it was enough to live on. "I got a job," I told Dovey excitedly. "I'm working at the library." "Zenobia, that's wonderful," Dovey said, hugging me. "I'm so proud of you." "I haven't had a job in years," I said. "I wasn't sure I could do it, but Royal believed in me, and you believed in me, and I did it." "You did it yourself," Dovey corrected. "We just gave you the tools. You're the one who's doing the hard work." 5 months after Sterling left me at that homeless shelter, my life looked completely different. I was healthy. My diabetes and blood pressure were under control, thanks to Dr. Thompson's care. I was employed. Working at the library gave me purpose, income, and social interaction. I was saving money. I'd managed to save over $3,000, money I kept in a bank account Sterling knew nothing about. And I was emotionally stronger. The support group had helped me process my anger and pain. I'd stopped blaming myself for Sterling's choices. But I still hadn't heard from him, not once in 5 months. He'd completely erased me from his life, just as I'd feared. "How do you feel about that?" Winnie asked during a support group session. "Angry," I admitted. "Hurt, but also clear. For years, I made excuses for Sterling. I told myself he was just busy, just stressed, just going through a hard time. But the truth is, he's selfish and cruel, and I deserve better." "Yes, you do," Winnie agreed. "So what are you going to do about it?" "I don't know yet," I said, "but I'm working on it." 2 weeks later, Dovey arranged for me to meet with a lawyer who specialized in elder abuse cases. Homer Sterling, no relation to my son, thankfully, was a sharp-looking man in his 50s who'd built his career fighting for elderly clients. "Mrs. Carter, Dovey told me about your situation," Homer said. "Your son abandoned you at a homeless shelter despite having the financial means to help you. Is that correct?" "Yes," I confirmed. "And do you have any evidence of his financial situation?" Homer asked. "Bank statements, tax returns, anything that proves he could have helped you." "No," I admitted, "but I have screenshots from social media showing his apartment, his car, his lifestyle. He's not struggling financially." "That helps," Homer said. "What about communications? Did he ever text or email you anything that shows his refusal to help?" I pulled out a folder I'd prepared. Inside were printouts of text messages between Sterling and me over the past 2 years. Messages where I'd begged for help and he'd refused. Homer read through them, his expression growing darker. "These are damning. He knew you were in trouble. He knew you needed help, and he explicitly refused." "Can I sue him?" I asked. "You can," Homer said. "We'd file a civil suit for elder abandonment and financial exploitation. We'd argue that Sterling had a moral and legal obligation to assist you, and his failure to do so constituted abuse." "What would I win?" I asked. "If we win, the judge could order Sterling to pay you damages, compensation for the pain and suffering you experienced due to his abandonment, possibly restitution for the financial losses you incurred, and we'd ask for court costs and legal fees." "How much money are we talking about?" I asked. "Hard to say," Homer admitted. "Could be 50,000, could be 200,000. Depends on the judge and how well we make our case." I thought about it. $200,000 would be life-changing. I could get my own apartment, buy a car, have real financial security. "What are the downsides?" I asked. "The emotional toll," Homer said honestly. "Suing your son will be painful. He'll fight back. He'll say terrible things about you in court. He'll try to make you look like the villain. Are you prepared for that?" I thought about Sterling leaving me at that shelter, walking away without looking back, never calling to check if I was okay. "Yes," I said. "I'm prepared. Let's do it." 2 weeks later, Homer filed the lawsuit. Zenobia Carter v. Sterling Carter, case of elder abandonment and financial exploitation. The lawsuit detailed everything. How I'd raised Sterling, sacrificed for him, supported him. How I'd fallen on hard times, due to health and financial problems. How Sterling had refused to help despite having the means. How he'd left me at a homeless shelter with $50. How he'd cut off all contact for 6 months. And how his actions had caused me severe physical, emotional, and financial harm. Sterling was served with the lawsuit at his office. According to the process server, Sterling had turned ash white when he read the documents. Good. Let him feel a fraction of the fear I'd felt when he abandoned me. 3 days after being served, Sterling called me for the first time in 6 months. I'd gotten a cell phone through a program for low-income seniors, and Dovey had helped me track down his new number. "Mom," Sterling's voice was frantic. "What the hell is this lawsuit?" "Exactly what it says," I said calmly. "You abandoned me. Now you're facing consequences." "I didn't abandon you," Sterling protested. "I got you into a shelter. I gave you money." "You gave me $50 and left me homeless," I corrected. "Then you disappeared for 6 months. That's abandonment, Sterling, and it's illegal." "You can't sue me for this," Sterling said desperately. "I'm your son." "Exactly," I said. "You're my son, the person who should have protected me. Instead, you threw me away like garbage and hoped I'd die." "I never wanted you to die," Sterling said, though his voice lacked conviction. "Didn't you?" I asked. "Be honest, Sterling. Wouldn't it have been easier for you if I'd just died in that shelter? Then you wouldn't have to feel guilty. You wouldn't have to face what you did." There was silence on the other end. "Where are you living now?" Sterling finally asked. "Somewhere safe," I said. "Somewhere you'll never find me unless I want you to." "Mom, please, can we meet?" Sterling asked. "Can we talk about this? I'll apologize, I'll help you now, just drop the lawsuit." "No," I said. "You had 6 months to apologize, 6 months to help. You chose not to, so now we're doing this my way. See you in court, Sterling." I hung up. My hands were shaking, but I felt powerful. For the first time in my relationship with my son, I had control. Over the next 2 months, Homer and I prepared for trial. We gathered evidence, prepared witnesses, built our case. Dovie agreed to testify about the condition I was in when she found me at the shelter. Dr. Thompson agreed to testify about my medical neglect and how it could have killed me. Members of my support group agreed to testify about the pattern of elder abandonment and how common it is. And I prepared my own testimony, the story of how Sterling had systematically abandoned me, ignored my pleas for help, and left me to die. "You're going to be a powerful witness," Homer told me. "You're articulate, sympathetic, and you have documentation of everything. Sterling's lawyer is going to have a hard time discrediting you." "What will Sterling's defense be?" I asked. "He'll probably claim he couldn't afford to help you," Homer said. "He'll try to paint himself as the victim, overwhelmed, struggling financially, unable to take on the burden of an elderly parent." "But that's not true," I protested. "I know," Homer said. "And we're going to prove it's not true. We're going to show the judge exactly how much money Sterling has, how he chose to spend it on himself instead of helping you, and how that choice nearly cost you your life." The night before our court date, I couldn't sleep. I lay in my small apartment at Sunrise Manor, thinking about everything that had led to this moment. 6 months ago, I'd been at rock bottom. Homeless, sick, alone, convinced I would die in that shelter. But I'd survived. More than survived, I'd rebuilt. I'd become stronger, healthier, more independent than I'd been in years. And tomorrow, I was going to face my son in court and make him answer for what he'd done. My phone rang. It was Homer. "Zenobia, I have news," he said. "Sterling's lawyer just called. They want to settle." "Settle," I repeated. "What does that mean?" "It means Sterling doesn't want to go to trial," Homer explained. "He's offering to pay you a lump sum in exchange for you dropping the lawsuit." "How much?" I asked. $75,000, Homer said. I was silent, processing this. "That's a substantial amount," Homer continued. "It would give you real financial security. You could get your own apartment, maybe buy a car. You'd be set for years." "But," I asked, hearing the hesitation in his voice. "But if we go to trial and win, we might get more," Homer said. "Maybe double that, maybe triple. And more importantly, Sterling would have a public record of what he did. Right now, if you settle, it's all confidential. No one except us would ever know." "I want people to know," I said immediately. "I want it on record what he did to me, so when other people's children try to abandon them, they know they can fight back." "Then we go to trial," Homer said. "I'll tell them we're rejecting the settlement." "Good," I said. "See you in court tomorrow." This story is getting more intense. Subscribe now, smash that like button, and turn on NOTFICTONS. Drop a comment. Would you have taken the settlement or gone to trial? What do you think Sterling deserves? Where are you watching from? The morning of the trial, I dressed carefully in a burgundy suit that Dovie had helped me buy from a thrift store. It was professional, dignified, and made me look like someone who deserved respect, not like the broken, homeless woman Sterling had abandoned 6 months ago. I looked at myself in the mirror and barely recognized the person staring back. 6 months ago, I'd been hopeless, defeated, ready to give up. Now I was strong, healthy, and ready to fight. Homer picked me up at 8 o'clock sharp. "Ready for this?" he asked. "More ready than I've ever been," I said. We drove to the courthouse in silence. I could see Homer reviewing his notes, preparing his arguments. I sat quietly, thinking about what I wanted to say when I took the stand. As we walked up the courthouse steps, I saw Sterling standing outside with his lawyer, a slick-looking man in an expensive suit named Burl Green. Sterling saw me and his face went ash white, just like it had when I'd shown up at his office. He grabbed Burl's arm and whispered something urgently. I walked right past them without saying a word, my head held high. Let him squirm. Let him worry. He deserved to feel every bit of the fear he'd made me feel. The courtroom was smaller than I'd expected, but it felt imposing nonetheless. High ceilings, wood paneling, the judge's bench elevated above everyone else. Judge Artie Washington was a black woman in her 60s with sharp eyes and an air of authority. She'd been a family court judge for 20 years and, according to Homer, was known for being fair but tough. All rise, the bailiff called, the Honorable Judge Artie Washington presiding. We all stood as Judge Washington entered and took her seat. Please be seated, she said. We're here today for the case of Zenobia Carter versus Sterling Carter, a civil suit alleging elder abandonment and financial exploitation. Counsel, are we ready to proceed? Yes, Your Honor, Homer said, standing. Yes, Your Honor, Burl echoed, though he sounded less confident. Very well, Judge Washington said. Mr. Sterling, you may present your opening statement. Homer stood and walked to the center of the courtroom. Your Honor, this is a straightforward case of elder abuse. Mrs. Zenobia Carter is a 78-year-old widow who raised her son Sterling as a single mother after her husband died. She gave him everything: love, support, education, opportunities. When Mrs. Carter fell on hard times due to health problems and financial difficulties, she asked her son for help. He refused, not because he couldn't help, but because he chose not to. He had the financial means to assist his mother, but he decided his comfort was more important than her survival. Homer gestured to me. Sterling Carter drove his 77-year-old mother to a homeless shelter, gave her $50, and walked away. He cut off all contact. He changed his phone number. He hoped she would simply disappear from his life. What he did wasn't just cruel, it was illegal. And we're here today to hold him accountable. Judge Washington nodded, making notes. Mr. Green, your opening statement. Burl Green stood up, straightening his tie. Your Honor, this case is based on a fundamental misunderstanding of my client's circumstances. Sterling Carter loves his mother. He has always loved his mother. But love doesn't create unlimited legal obligations. The reality is that Sterling was going through his own financial crisis at the time his mother needed help. He'd recently gone through a costly divorce, was struggling with his own debts, and simply didn't have the resources to support another person. He made the difficult but responsible decision to connect his mother with social services, the homeless shelter, where she could receive professional help. Abandonment implies intent to harm, Burl continued. Sterling never intended to harm his mother. He was doing the best he could under difficult circumstances. This lawsuit is unjust and should be dismissed. I felt anger rising in my chest. Every word out of Burl's mouth was a lie, and he knew it. Mrs. Carter, please take the stand, Judge Washington said. I stood and walked to the witness stand, my legs shaking slightly but my resolve firm. I placed my hand on the Bible and swore to tell the truth. Homer approached me with a kind smile. Mrs. Carter, please tell the court your name and age. My name is Zenobia Carter, and I'm 78 years old. And Sterling Carter, the defendant, is your son. Yes, I said, glancing at Sterling. He was staring at the table, refusing to meet my eyes. Mrs. Carter, can you tell us about your relationship with your son growing up? I took a deep breath. I raised Sterling by myself after my husband Judge died in 2005. Before that, we raised him together. We gave him everything we could, a good home, a good education, love, and support. Sterling went to college. He got a good job. He built a successful career, and I was so proud of him. What happened when you started having health and financial problems? Homer asked. I asked Sterling for help, I said. Multiple times. I called him when I was in the hospital with dangerously high blood pressure. He never came. I called him when I couldn't pay my electric bill. He said he couldn't help. I called him when the bank was foreclosing on my house. He said it wasn't his problem. Did you believe he genuinely couldn't help you? Homer asked. No, I said firmly. I saw pictures on social media of his expensive apartment, his new car, vacations he was taking. He had money. He just didn't want to spend it on me. What happened when you lost your house? I had nowhere to go, I said, my voice cracking. I called Sterling one last time. I begged him to let me stay with him, just temporarily. He said no. He said I needed to learn to stand on my own 2 feet. I'm 78 years old, I continued, anger creeping into my voice. I'm diabetic. I have high blood pressure. I can barely work anymore. How was I supposed to stand on my own 2 feet? What happened next? Homer prompted gently. Sterling drove me to the homeless shelter on 5th Street, I said. He gave me $50, and then he left. That was 6 months ago. I didn't hear from him again until after I filed this lawsuit. How did living in the homeless shelter affect your health? Homer asked. It nearly killed me, I said bluntly. My diabetes got worse because I couldn't afford my medication or proper food. My blood pressure skyrocketed from the stress. A doctor later told me that if I'd gone much longer without proper medical care, I probably would have died. There were gasps from the small audience in the courtroom. Mrs. Carter, do you believe your son wanted you to die? Homer asked. I looked directly at Sterling. He finally looked up and met my eyes. I think he didn't care whether I lived or died, and that's almost worse. Burl Green stood up for cross-examination. His friendly demeanor was gone, replaced with an aggressive stance. Mrs. Carter, you testified that your son has money. How much money does he have? I don't know exactly, I admitted. You don't know, Burl repeated. So you're just guessing that he could afford to help you. I saw pictures on social media, Burl interrupted. Yes, we heard. But Mrs. Carter, did it ever occur to you that those pictures might not tell the whole story? That your son might have been struggling financially despite appearances? He had money for vacations, I said, but not for his mother. That tells me everything I need to know. Mrs. Carter, did you ever consider getting a job? Burl asked. Instead of relying on your son to support you. I tried, I said, but I'm 78 years old with health problems. No one wanted to hire me. But you have a job now, don't you? Burl pressed. Working at a library. Yes, I got that job 3 months ago, after a social worker helped me. So you are capable of working, Burl interrupted again. You're capable of supporting yourself. You just chose not to until you were forced to. That's not true, I protested. Your Honor, I object to counsel badgering the witness, Homer said, standing up. Sustained, Judge Washington said. Mr. Green, rephrase your questions as actual questions, not statements. Burl nodded. Mrs. Carter, isn't it true that you were financially irresponsible, that you failed to save for your retirement, that you expected your son to bail you out of your own poor planning? No, I said firmly. My husband and I saved everything we could, but he died young, and I've had medical expenses for years that ate through our savings. I didn't plan to get sick. I didn't plan to lose my husband. I didn't plan any of this. But you did plan to make your son responsible for you, Burl said. He's my son, I said, my voice rising. I raised him. I sacrificed for him. Is it really so wrong to expect him to help me when I needed it most? No further questions, Burl said, sitting down. I was shaking as I stepped down from the witness stand, but Homer gave me an encouraging nod. I'd held my ground. Mr. Carter, please take the stand, Judge Washington said. Sterling stood and walked to the witness stand. He looked pale and nervous, avoiding my gaze completely. Burl began his direct examination. Mr. Carter, do you love your mother? Of course I do, Sterling said quickly. Did you want to help her when she was in trouble? Yes, Sterling said, but I couldn't. I was going through my own financial crisis. Can you explain that crisis to the court? Burl asked. I'd just gone through a divorce, Sterling said. It was expensive, lawyer fees, dividing assets, child support. I was drowning in debt. I'd taken out a second mortgage on my condo to pay for it all. I barely had enough money to support myself, let alone take on another person. So when your mother asked for help, you genuinely couldn't provide it, Burrell asked. That's right, Sterling said. Then why did you take her to the homeless shelter? Burrell asked. Because I wanted her to get professional help, Sterling said. The shelter has resources, social workers, medical care, housing assistance. I thought they could help her better than I could. It all sounded so reasonable when he said it like that, but I knew the truth. Homer stood up for cross-examination, and the friendly expression on his face was gone. Mr. Carter, you testified that you were drowning in debt. Is that correct? Yes, Sterling said. And yet you took a vacation to Hawaii 3 months after you left your mother at the homeless shelter, Homer said, pulling out printed social media posts. This is a picture you posted on Facebook with the caption, "Much-needed vacation." How did you afford that if you were drowning in debt? Sterling's face flushed. That was a work trip. The company paid for it. Really? Homer asked. Because the caption says, spending my bonus on some R&R that doesn't sound like a work trip. Sterling didn't answer. And this, Homer continued, pulling out another printout, is a picture of your new car. A 2024 Mercedes purchased 4 months after you abandoned your mother. How much did that car cost? I needed reliable transportation, Sterling said defensively. How much? Homer pressed. $65,000, Sterling admitted quietly. $65,000, Homer repeated, letting it sink in. But you couldn't spare a few hundred a month to help your mother pay rent. I was already stretched thin. You spent $65,000 on a car. Homer's voice rose. Mr. Carter, did you or did you not tell your mother that helping her wasn't your problem? Sterling hesitated. I may have said something like that. That's not my problem, Homer quoted from the text messages. That's what you said when she told you the bank was foreclosing on her house. Is that correct? I was frustrated, Sterling said. And when she begged you to let her stay with you temporarily, you said she needed to learn to stand on her own 2 feet. Is that correct? Yes, Sterling admitted. Mr. Carter, your mother is 78 years old with diabetes and high blood pressure. How exactly was she supposed to stand on her own 2 feet? I don't know, Sterling said quietly. I wasn't thinking clearly. Or you were thinking very clearly, Homer said. You were thinking that your mother was a burden, that helping her would inconvenience you, that it would be easier if she just went away. Isn't that right? No, Sterling protested. Then why didn't you call her for 6 months? Homer demanded. If you cared about her well-being, why didn't you check on her even once? Sterling was silent. Why didn't you check on her? Homer repeated. Because I was ashamed, Sterling finally said, his voice breaking. I knew what I'd done was wrong and I couldn't face it. But you could live with it, Homer said. You could sleep at night knowing your mother was homeless. You could go on vacations and buy luxury cars while she was sleeping on a cot in a shelter. That's not shame, Mr. Carter. That's indifference. Objection, Burrell stood up, argumentative. Sustained, Judge Washington said. Mr. Sterling, please stick to questions. No further questions, Homer said, sitting down. Sterling stepped down from the witness stand, looking defeated. Dovie Williams took the stand next, professional and composed. Ms. Williams, please tell the court what you do, Homer said. I'm a social worker, specializing in helping elderly, homeless individuals access resources and rebuild their lives. And how did you meet Zenobia Carter? I met her at the homeless shelter on 5th Street, Dovie said. She'd been there about a week when I was assigned to her case. Can you describe her condition when you met her? She was in terrible shape, Dovie said bluntly. Physically ill from uncontrolled diabetes and high blood pressure, emotionally devastated, confused about how she'd ended up homeless. She told me her son had left her there, and honestly, I see that a lot. But what struck me about Zenobia was how preventable her situation was. What do you mean? Homer asked. I mean she had family who could have helped her, Dovie explained. She wasn't some random person who'd fallen through the cracks of society. She had a son with resources, but he chose not to use those resources to help his mother. That's not just tragic, it's criminal. In your professional opinion, was Sterling Carter's decision to leave his mother at the homeless shelter appropriate? Absolutely not, Dovey said firmly. If someone genuinely can't care for an elderly parent, there are proper channels, assisted living facilities, adult protective services, family meetings to coordinate care. You don't just dump your elderly mother at a homeless shelter and walk away. That's abandonment, and it's a form of elder abuse. Dr. Royal Thompson testified next about my medical condition. When I first examined Mrs. Carter, her diabetes was completely out of control, Dr. Thompson said. Her blood sugar levels were in the 300s when they should have been below 130. Her blood pressure was 180 over 110, which is dangerously high. She was at serious risk of stroke, heart attack, or diabetic coma. Why was her condition so bad? Homer asked. Because she hadn't received proper medical care in over a year, Dr. Thompson explained. She couldn't afford her medications or doctor visits, and living in a homeless shelter, she had no access to the diet control necessary for managing diabetes. In your medical opinion, could Mrs. Carter have died if she'd continued without treatment? Absolutely, Dr. Thompson said. Within months, maybe weeks, her condition was life-threatening. And is she better now? Much better, Dr. Thompson said, smiling at me. With proper medication, diet, and monitoring, both her diabetes and blood pressure are now well controlled. But that's because she got into stable housing and received consistent medical care. If she'd stayed at that shelter, she wouldn't be here today. After all the testimony was heard, Homer stood to give his closing argument. Your Honor, the evidence is clear. Sterling Carter had the financial means to help his mother. He chose not to. He spent $65,000 on a car but wouldn't spare a few hundred a month for his mother's rent. He took vacations while his mother slept in a homeless shelter. He bought luxury items while his mother went without her life-saving medications. This isn't about legal obligation in the traditional sense, Homer continued. It's about basic human decency. And it's about the law in this state that makes it illegal to abandon or neglect elderly family members when you have the means to help them. Sterling Carter violated that law. He abandoned his mother and left her to die. She survived only because strangers, social workers, doctors, other kind people stepped in to help. Her own son couldn't be bothered. We're asking this court to award damages for pain and suffering, medical expenses, and emotional distress. We're asking for $150,000 in compensation for what Sterling put his mother through. And we're asking that this court send a message that elder abandonment will not be tolerated. Burrell Green stood for his closing argument. Your Honor, this case is based on emotion, not law. Yes, Sterling Carter made mistakes. Yes, he could have handled the situation better, but he didn't commit a crime. He connected his mother with social services, which is exactly what he should have done when he couldn't help her himself. The plaintiff wants to punish my client for being human, for having financial struggles, for making difficult choices under pressure. But being an imperfect son isn't illegal. This lawsuit is unjustified, and we ask that it be dismissed. Judge Washington nodded. I'll take this under advisement and issue a ruling within 2 weeks. Court is adjourned. The 2 weeks waiting for the judge's decision were agonizing. I went to work at the library, attended my support group meetings, tried to stay busy. But I couldn't stop thinking about the trial, about Sterling's testimony, his excuses, his refusal to take real responsibility. Whatever happens, you've already won, Dovey told me. You survived, you rebuilt your life. You stood up for yourself in court. That's victory, regardless of what the judge decides. I know, I said, but I want him to be held accountable. I want it on record what he did. You'll know soon, Dovey said. Exactly 2 weeks after the trial, I received a call from Homer. Zenobia, the judge issued her ruling. Can you come to my office? I took a taxi to Homer's office, my heart pounding. He met me at the door with an expression I couldn't quite read. What did she decide? I asked. Homer smiled. You won. I felt tears spring to my eyes. I won. You won, Homer confirmed, handing me the written judgment. Judge Washington ruled in your favor on all counts. She found that Sterling did abandon you, that his actions constituted elder abuse, and that you deserve compensation. How much? I asked. $125,000, Homer said, plus court costs and legal fees, which Sterling has to pay separately. I sat down heavily. $125,000. It was more money than I'd ever had in my life. There's more, Homer said. Judge Washington wrote a scathing opinion about Sterling's behavior. She said his actions were morally reprehensible and legally indefensible. She said he prioritized his own comfort over his mother's survival, and that his behavior represents the worst kind of family betrayal. That will be public record, I asked. Yes, Homer confirmed. Anyone can read it. If Sterling ever tries to claim he's a good son, this ruling will follow him forever. I started crying, tears of relief, vindication, and triumph. I'd won. I'd actually won. Subscribe now, smash that like button, and turn on NOTFICTONS. Drop a comment. Did Sterling get what he deserved? What should Zenobia do with the money? Where are you watching from? 3 days after Judge Washington's ruling, I stood in front of Sterling's office building once more. But this time, I wasn't here to sue him. I was here to collect what was owed to me and to show him exactly how much stronger I'd become. I was wearing the same burgundy suit from the trial, my hair perfectly styled, my posture confident. I looked like a woman who'd won because I had. The receptionist recognized me from my last visit. Mrs. Carter, is Mr. Carter expecting you? No, I said, but he'll see me. Tell him his mother is here to discuss the judgment. Within minutes, Sterling appeared in the lobby. He looked terrible, dark circles under his eyes, weight loss, disheveled appearance. The judgment had clearly taken a toll on him. When he saw me standing there looking healthy, strong, and victorious, his face went ash-white again, just like it had the first time I'd returned. Just like it had in the courtroom when he'd realized he was going to lose. Mom, he said quietly, what are you doing here? We need to talk, I said, about the payment schedule. Sterling glanced around nervously at his coworkers passing through the lobby. Can we go somewhere private? Your office, I said, unless you'd prefer to discuss your court-ordered payment of $125,000 right here in the lobby. Sterling's face flushed with embarrassment. Follow me. Sterling's office was exactly what I'd expected. Modern, expensive furniture, floor-to-ceiling windows, with a city view, framed awards on the walls celebrating his success. All of this while his mother had slept on a cot in a homeless shelter. Mom, I can't pay you $125,000, Sterling said immediately, sitting behind his desk like it was a shield. I don't have that kind of money. You have a Mercedes that cost $65,000, I pointed out. You could sell it. I need that car for work, Sterling protested. And I needed a home, I said calmly. But you didn't seem to care about that. Sell the car, Sterling, buy something cheaper, like most people drive. Even if I sell the car, that's still only $65,000, Sterling said desperately. Where am I supposed to get the other $60,000? The same place you got money for vacations, I said. For your expensive apartment. For all the things you bought for yourself while I was homeless. Figure it out, Sterling. You have 60 days according to the judgment, or the court will garnish your wages. Sterling put his head in his hands. You're destroying my life. No, I said firmly. You destroyed your own life when you abandoned your mother. I'm just holding you accountable for it. Everyone at work knows about the judgment, Sterling said, his voice breaking. It's public record. They all know what I did. My boss called me into his office and asked if it was true. My colleagues won't even look at me. You've ruined my reputation. Good, I said without sympathy. You should be ashamed. What you did was shameful. I made a mistake, Sterling shouted, standing up. Haven't you ever made a mistake? A mistake is forgetting to pay a bill, I said. A mistake is saying something thoughtless. What you did, leaving your elderly, sick mother on the street to die, that wasn't a mistake. That was a choice. multiple choices made over months to prioritize yourself over my survival. "What do you want from me?" Sterling demanded. "You won the lawsuit, you're getting the money, what more do you want?" "I want you to understand what you did," I said. "I want you to feel a fraction of the fear and desperation I felt when you abandoned me. I want you to know what it's like to lose everything, your security, your dignity, your sense of worth, because that's what you did to me." Sterling sank back into his chair, tears streaming down his face. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Mom. I don't know what else to say." "Sorry isn't enough," I said. "Sorry doesn't give me back the 6 months I spent thinking my own son wanted me dead. Sorry doesn't erase the trauma of living in a homeless shelter at 77 years old. Sorry is just a word, Sterling. What matters is what you do next." "What do you want me to do?" Sterling asked, looking up at me with red, swollen eyes. "I want you to sell your car," I said. "Downsize your apartment, live within your means, and pay me what the court ordered, every penny, on time." "And then," Sterling asked, "after I pay you, what happens to us?" I looked at my son, this man I'd raised, loved, and sacrificed for. This man who'd thrown me away when I became inconvenient. "I don't know," I said honestly. "Maybe someday I'll be able to forgive you. Maybe someday we can have some kind of relationship again. But right now, I just need you to do the right thing. For once in your life, do the right thing." Sterling did sell his Mercedes. He bought a used Toyota instead and put the difference toward the judgment. He also moved to a smaller apartment, cutting his rent in half. He made his first payment, $20,000, right on time. "He's paying," Homer told me when the check cleared. "And based on the payment plan he submitted to the court, he'll have the full amount paid off in 6 months." "Good," I said. Meanwhile, my life continued to transform in ways I never could have imagined. With the first payment from Sterling, I was able to move out of Sunrise Manor into my own small apartment. It wasn't fancy, just a 1-bedroom in a decent neighborhood, but it was mine, really mine. I furnished it slowly, carefully, choosing each item with intention. A comfortable couch from a thrift store, a kitchen table where I could have people over for meals, a real bed with a good mattress for my aging back. For the first time in nearly a year, I had my own space, my own home, and it felt like heaven. 4 months after the judgment, I made a decision that surprised even me. I was having coffee with Dovie when I told her my plan. "I want to start a foundation," I said, "to help other elderly people who have been abandoned by their families." Dovie's eyes lit up. "Zenobia, that's wonderful. What kind of foundation?" "I want to provide legal assistance," I explained. "Connect elderly people who have been exploited or abandoned with lawyers who can help them fight back, like Homer helped me. And I want to provide emergency financial assistance, money for rent deposits, medical bills, things that help people get stable quickly." "How much are you thinking of putting into it?" Dovie asked. $50,000, I said, "almost half of what Sterling is paying me." "That's incredibly generous," Dovie said. "But Zenobia, are you sure? That's your security money, your nest egg." "I know," I said, "but I also know what it's like to be abandoned with nothing. If I can help even a few people avoid what I went through, it'll be worth it." "Then let's do it," Dovie said, reaching across the table to squeeze my hand. "I'll help you set it up." Over the next month, we created the Judge Carter Foundation, named after my late husband who'd always believed in helping others. The foundation provided 2 services. 1, legal referrals and financial assistance for elderly people pursuing elder abuse cases. 2, emergency grants of up to $2,000 for elderly people in crisis situations. We started small, helping just a few people the first month. But word spread quickly through social service networks, shelters, and senior centers. Within 6 months, we'd helped 43 elderly people. Some got legal representation to sue abusive family members. Others got emergency grants that allowed them to leave dangerous situations or secure stable housing. Every time I wrote a check or connected someone with a lawyer, I thought about how different my life would have been if this foundation had existed when I needed it. I was using my pain to prevent others from experiencing the same suffering. And that felt like the most meaningful thing I'd ever done. One unexpected blessing that came from the trial was reconnecting with extended family members I'd lost touch with over the years. My nephew Royal, Judge's brother's son, called me after reading about the judgment in the local paper. "Aunt Zenobia, it's Royal. I just read about what happened with Sterling. I'm so sorry. I had no idea you were going through all that." "It's okay, honey," I said. "I didn't tell anyone. I was too ashamed." "You have nothing to be ashamed of," Royal said firmly. "Sterling should be ashamed. Listen, I'm in town next week for work. Can I take you to dinner? I want to catch up properly." I met Royal for dinner at a nice restaurant. He was 52 now, a successful engineer with a kind heart, everything Sterling should have been. "I lost touch with you after Uncle Judge died," Royal said, "and I've always regretted it. I should have checked on you, made sure you were okay." "You were busy with your own life," I said. "I understood." "That's no excuse," Royal said. "You're family, and after reading what Sterling did to you, I realized I never want to be that kind of person. The kind who forgets about family when they're not convenient." "You're not that kind of person," I assured him. "You're here now." Royal started visiting me regularly after that. He helped me set up the foundation's website, donated money to the cause, and introduced me to other family members I'd lost contact with. Slowly, carefully, I was building a new family network, not the one I'd been born into, but one based on genuine care and mutual respect. My support group at Sunrise Manor continued to be a source of strength and inspiration. Pearlie, the 82-year-old whose daughter had stolen her savings, won her own lawsuit and recovered most of her money. Judge, the 75-year-old whose son had forged documents, got his house back through legal action. Artie, whose grandchildren had exploited her pension, was now living in assisted living that her settlement money paid for. We celebrated each other's victories and supported each other through setbacks. We'd all been abandoned or exploited by family, but we'd found a new family in each other. "You inspired all of us," Winnie Chen, our group leader, told me. "When you filed your lawsuit and actually won, it gave everyone else hope that they could fight back too." "We fought back together," I said. "None of us could have done it alone." The group started growing, new members joining every month, all with similar stories of family betrayal. But now they had a roadmap for how to fight back, how to hold their abusers accountable, how to rebuild their lives. We'd become a community of survivors, not victims. 6 months after the judgment, Sterling made his final payment. The full $125,000 had been paid, plus court costs and legal fees. Homer called to confirm. "It's done, Zenobia. You've received every penny the court ordered. How does it feel?" "Like justice," I said. A week later, I received a letter in the mail. It was from Sterling. "Dear Mom, I've made the final payment on the judgment. I know that doesn't erase what I did, but I wanted you to know that I followed through completely. The past 6 months have been the hardest of my life. Selling my car, moving to a smaller apartment, watching every penny, it's been humbling. But it's also been necessary. For the first time in my life, I understand what you went through. The fear of not having enough money, the stress of trying to make ends meet, the humiliation of having to downsize and accept less. I'm sorry it took losing a lawsuit for me to learn empathy. I'm sorry I didn't understand what you needed until I experienced struggle myself. I know you don't want to hear from me. I know I destroyed our relationship, probably forever. But I wanted to tell you something. I'm grateful. Grateful that you survived. Grateful that you fought back. Grateful that you taught me a lesson I desperately needed to learn. I'm in therapy now, working on understanding why I became the kind of person who could abandon his own mother. It's painful work, but it's necessary. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't expect a relationship. I just wanted you to know that I see what I did now. I see how wrong I was, and I'm trying to be better. I hope you're happy, Mom. I hope you're healthy. I hope you're building the life you deserve. With regret and respect, Sterling. I read the letter 3 times. There were no excuses in it, no attempts to minimize what he'd done. Just acknowledgement, apology, and a commitment to change. It didn't erase the pain. It didn't give me back what I'd lost, but it was something. 1 year after Sterling left me at that homeless shelter, I celebrated my 79th birthday, surrounded by people who genuinely cared about me. Dovie Williams was there, the social worker who'd saved my life. Dr. Royal Thompson was there, the doctor who'd restored my health. Homer Sterling was there, the lawyer who'd fought for my justice. Royal, my nephew, was there with his wife and children. And members of my support group were there, Pearlie, Judge, Artie, Winnie, and others who'd become like family. Make a wish, they all called as I leaned over the birthday cake. I closed my eyes and thought about what I wanted. A year ago, I would have wished for my old life back. My house, my health, my relationship with Sterling. But now I had something better. I had my own apartment that I'd chosen and furnished myself. I had a job I enjoyed and colleagues who respected me. I had better health than I'd had in years, thanks to consistent medical care. I had a foundation that was helping other elderly people fight back against abuse. I had genuine friendships and family connections based on mutual care, not obligation. And I had my dignity, my strength, my sense of self-worth. I opened my eyes and blew out the candles. "What did you wish for?" Dovie asked. "Nothing," I said honestly. "I have everything I need." 3 months after my birthday, I was walking out of the library after my shift when I saw someone I recognized standing by the bus stop. Sterling. He looked different than he had at the trial or in his office. He'd lost the expensive suit, the air of superiority. He was wearing jeans and a regular jacket, standing with his hands in his pockets, looking nervous. When he saw me, he straightened up. "Mom, hi." "Sterling," I said, my voice neutral. "What are you doing here?" "I knew you worked at this library," Sterling admitted. "I've been waiting to talk to you. I know I don't have the right to just show up, but I needed to see you." "Why?" I asked. "Because I've been in therapy for 8 months, Sterling said, working through why I did what I did, and my therapist said I need to make direct amends, not just write letters." "So this is for your therapy?" I asked, feeling a flash of anger. "No," Sterling said quickly. "I mean, yes, my therapist suggested it, but it's not just for therapy. Mom, I need you to hear me say this face to face. I was wrong about everything, and I'm so sorry." I looked at my son, this man who'd caused me so much pain. He looked genuinely remorseful, genuinely changed. But I'd learned not to trust easily anymore. "What do you want from me, Sterling?" I asked. "Nothing," Sterling said. "I don't want money back. I don't want you to drop the judgment from public record. I don't even necessarily want forgiveness, though I'd love it if someday you could give me that." "Then what?" I asked. "I just want you to know that you were right to do what you did," Sterling said. "Right to sue me, right to expose what I did, right to make me face consequences, because it changed me. It forced me to look at myself and see the person I'd become, and I hated that person." "Are you different now?" I asked. "I'm trying to be," Sterling said. "I volunteer at a homeless shelter now, the same one where I left you. I serve meals, help people find resources, listen to their stories. And every time I'm there, I think about you, about what you went through because of me." "That's good," I said. "But Sterling, volunteering doesn't erase what you did." "I know," Sterling said. "Nothing can erase it, but maybe I can keep it from happening to someone else. Maybe I can help other people avoid making the same mistakes I made." We stood in silence for a moment, the evening air cool around us. "Can I ask you something?" Sterling finally said. "What?" "Are you happy now?" Sterling asked. "Really happy?" I thought about my apartment, my job, my foundation, my friends. About the life I'd built from nothing after he'd left me with nothing. "Yes," I said. "I'm happy, happier than I've been in years." "Good," Sterling said, and he sounded like he meant it. "That's all I wanted to know, that you're okay, that you survived, that you're thriving despite what I did. I'm thriving because of what I did, I corrected. Because I fought back, because I refused to be a victim. You tried to break me, Sterling, but I came back stronger. I know, Sterling said, and I'm proud of you for that. I know I don't have the right to be proud, but I am. My bus pulled up to the stop. I started to walk toward it, then paused. Sterling, I said, turning back to him. Yes. Keep volunteering at that shelter, I said. Keep trying to be better, and maybe someday we can have a conversation that lasts longer than 5 minutes. Sterling's face lit up with hope. Really? Maybe, I emphasized. But you need to earn that, Sterling. You need to show me through consistent action over time that you've actually changed. Words aren't enough. I understand, Sterling said. And I will, I promise I will. I got on the bus and found a seat by the window. As the bus pulled away, I looked back and saw Sterling still standing there, watching me leave. But this time, I was the one in control. I was the one who got to decide if and when we'd have a relationship again. I was the one with the power. 2 years after Sterling abandoned me, my life had become something I never could have imagined. The Judge Carter Foundation had helped over 300 elderly people fight back against abuse and exploitation. 47 of them had won legal judgments against their abusers. Hundreds more had received emergency grants that helped them get stable. I'd become a minor celebrity in the elder advocacy community. I gave talks at senior centers, testified before the state legislature about elder abuse laws, and appeared in news articles about fighting back against family exploitation. My story had inspired countless others to stand up for themselves, to refuse to accept mistreatment, to know their worth. Sterling and I had slowly, carefully rebuilt some kind of relationship. We had coffee once a month. He'd continued volunteering at the shelter and had started a support group for adult children learning to care for aging parents properly. He'd apologized probably 100 times. I'd forgiven him, partially. Some wounds run too deep to fully heal, and I'd accepted that. But we were civil, respectful, cordial, and maybe that was enough. On my 80th birthday, I threw a big party at the community center. Over 100 people came, friends from the support group, people I'd helped through the foundation, family members, colleagues from the library. And yes, Sterling was there, on the periphery, respectful of my space, but there. As I looked around the room at all these people who'd come into my life after I'd lost everything, I felt overwhelming gratitude. Speech, someone called out. I stood up, and the room quieted. 2.5 years ago, I began, my son left me at a homeless shelter. He gave me $50 and walked away. He changed his number, moved apartments, and cut me out of his life completely. He hoped I would disappear, maybe even die. The room was silent, everyone listening. I thought that was the end of my story, I continued. I thought I'd lost everything, my home, my health, my family, my dignity. I thought I would die alone and forgotten in that shelter. But I didn't die, I said, my voice growing stronger. Instead, I met people who actually cared about me, strangers who became friends, then family, social workers who fought for me, doctors who healed me, lawyers who got me justice, and other survivors who showed me I wasn't alone. I didn't just survive, I continued. I rebuilt. I became stronger, healthier, and more purposeful than I'd ever been. I started a foundation that's helped hundreds of people. I reconnected with family I'd lost touch with. I built a life that's meaningful and fulfilling. My son thought leaving me on the street would get rid of me, I said. He thought I was weak, helpless, burdensome. He was wrong. When I came back 6 months later, healthy, employed, ready to fight, he turned ash-white with shock. Because he realized he hadn't broken me. He'd made me stronger. So this is what I want to say to anyone who's been abandoned, exploited, or abused by family, I said, looking around the room at all the survivors present. You are not weak. You are not worthless. You are not a burden. And you have the power to fight back. It won't be easy. It will hurt. It will require courage you didn't know you had. But you can do it. You can survive. You can rebuild. You can come back stronger than they ever imagined. And when you do, I smiled, when you show them that you're not broken, that you're powerful and resilient and valuable, they'll be the ones who are shocked. They'll be the ones who turn ash white with the realization of what they lost when they threw you away. Because we're not victims, I said firmly. We're survivors, we're warriors, we're proof that you can lose everything and still rebuild. That age doesn't mean weakness. That family betrayal doesn't have to define your story. We define our own stories, I concluded, and I chose to write a story of survival, strength, and triumph. Thank you all for being part of that story. The room erupted in applause, standing, cheering, crying, and celebrating. And I stood there, 80 years old, surrounded by love and respect and genuine connection, feeling more powerful than I'd ever felt in my life. Sterling had tried to leave me to die. Instead, he'd given me the greatest gift, the motivation to discover just how strong I really was. And that strength had carried me from homelessness to purpose, from victimhood to victory, from broken to unbreakable. I'd returned stronger than anyone, especially Sterling, could have imagined. And that was the greatest revenge of all. What an incredible transformation. Zenobia went from being abandoned and left to die to becoming an advocate who's helped hundreds of people fight back against abuse. She didn't just survive, she thrived and built a legacy of helping others. This story proves that it's never too late to fight back and reclaim your power. Age doesn't mean weakness, it can mean wisdom and strength. Family betrayal doesn't have to destroy you, it can make you stronger. Justice is possible, even when everything seems hopeless. Your pain can become your purpose if you let it. You can lose everything and still rebuild a beautiful life. If this story inspired you, please subscribe to this channel for more empowering stories. Smash that like button. Turn on notifications for new content. Drop a comment. What was your favorite moment in Zenobia's journey? Do you think she should have fully forgiven Sterling? Where are you watching from? United States, Canada, United Kingdom, Jamaica, South Africa, Australia, Trinidad, India, Philippines? Let me know. Remember, if you've been abandoned, exploited, or abused, you are not powerless. You can fight back, you can rebuild, and you can come back stronger than anyone ever imagined. Don't give up. Your story isn't over. Thank you for following Zenobia's powerful journey from abandonment to triumph. May her story inspire you to never let anyone make you feel weak or worthless. Until the next story, stay strong, know your worth, and never stop fighting for yourself.